Well, welcome back, and we continue our sessions. And now it is my pleasure to bring to the stage Josep Borrell, the top European diplomat. Can I ask you, do you feel more like a top European diplomat or a defense minister these days?
Well, to tell the truth, nowadays it's much more the defense side of my job who takes a lot of importance. And I am very happy.
So defense minister.
Well, I think that today this is what has to be done. That's what we have today. Today we face a war. We face a war, so it's important that the defense side of our foreign policy grows up in importance. And it's a good moment for Europe to understand how the world works, and that we have to be more united, not just by issuing statements and expressing concerns, but to have actions capacity.
And I remember when, I think it was 3 days after the war broke out, and you announced that weapons would be delivered to Ukraine. And many see that as a moment that will go in history. It was a before and after. Well, first I want to ask you, what did you feel that day? Did you think things are going to change now and will change in a way that we don't even understand?
Well, I remember very well, and I will write my memories, and I will tell everything. But I think today I can already say, look, we immediately started issuing statements, condemnation, concerns, and suddenly remember that I was talking with my staff and I said, look, we have a fund, and with this fund we provide arms to partners all around the world to train their troops. In Sahel, in Mozambique, well, at that time Mozambique was still not there, but why cannot do the same thing for Ukraine? Oh, because Ukraine is at war. Exactly for that, because Ukraine is at war. And I remember my staff to make a proposal, and they came with a proposal of providing 50 million euros. And I said, are you joking or what? And immediately we took a decision of a first tranche of 500 million. And today we are close to 6,000 millions. And altogether, member states plus the European Union institutions, we should be about 16 billion euros of support to Ukraine.
Which is a lot.
And it's not finished.
Is there more? How do you have a number that you would like to get to?
Well, for me, I hope the war stop it. They have not a warmongering, no. But look what's happening in the ground. Russia continues bombing systematically. The Russian army has been defeated. They tried to take Kiev in a couple of weeks. They failed. They have been pushed back. They haven't been able to take Bakhmut. It's a bloody war, but Russia has already lost this war. Ukraine has still not won. Still not win, but Russia is clearly a military defeat.
And for you, does that make the situation more dangerous, or actually shows the collective West is going to win this in the end?
The collective West. What is the collective West?
That's also a question for you. What is the collective West?
Well, the collective West, you can say everybody who is supporting Ukraine is part of the West. It's not a geographical denomination. It's a political stance. Everybody who is supporting Ukraine can be considered in the West. Although we have to take very much care of not dividing the world between the West and the rest. Russia would be very happy we could talk about the rest of the world is with us. No. A lot of people are not strong enough on the condemnation of Russia. They vote in the United Nations against Russia, 141, but later I hear some leaders around the world which are not strong enough in the condemnation of the Russia aggression against Ukraine.
When you say some, is that Brazil? Is that India? Is that, which are the ones that you say vote one thing in the United Nations, but then come out with not so clear statements in terms of how they see things?
Now, I don't want to shame a name because I am supposed also to be a diplomat, but it's clear that when I hear people saying, we want peace,
yes,
we want peace, look, me too. And the ones who want peace more are the Ukrainians. Certainly the Ukrainians who are being bombed every day. I was looking the other day at a military hospital in Spain with a lot of Ukrainian soldiers being treated, being wounded, and mutilated. Certainly the Ukrainians want peace. So don't tell me I want peace. Tell me how do you want peace? And what kind of peace do you want? Because, you know, I know a way of stopping the war.
Which is?
To stop supporting Ukraine. I stop supporting Ukraine and Ukraine will be over quickly. Because without our support, Ukraine cannot defend itself. So, what do you want? Do you want that? Do you want the Russian troops? Because people tell me, stop supporting Ukraine and then negotiations will start and peace will come. Come on. If we start supporting Ukraine, Russia will push, will win the war, will occupy Kiev, will convert Ukraine in a second Belarus. We will have Russian troops on the Polish border. Our insecurity will increase and Ukraine will not exist. That's the way things will happen.
And some would say that's big hypocrisy to say don't send weapons to Ukraine. That will bring peace, but we know that in reality would bring a military victory to Russia. When you hear that argument, does it make you angry?
I don't know to call it hypocrisy, naivete, but I discuss a lot with friends and even people who, mainly from the left in Europe, which bothers me is that some people from the left saying, you are feeding the war. You are guilty, you are feeding the war. Well, feeding the war. No, I am supporting Ukraine. Yes, but on supporting Ukraine, you are prolonging the war. Yes, I am prolonging the war because Ukraine is able to defend. You don't understand that if we stop supporting Ukraine, Ukraine will disappear as a free, independent country? No, man, the peace negotiations, we are ready for peace negotiations, but everybody who has gone to the Kremlin and talked with Putin came back with the same message. I have a military objective, and as far as I don't get these military objectives, I will continue. Can I say the war? Yes, but what kind of a war? At that time, at that moment, is a systematic bombing of the civilians. Systematic destruction of a country. It's not an army fighting against another army. It's an everyday bombing of the cities, destroying civil infrastructure, killing civilians, kidnapping children. This is the kind of the war that's happening in Ukraine. The world should look at this war the way it is.
And your support for Ukraine has always been clear. It's always been clear. And I remember this phrase that you always say, ultimately wars are won on the battlefield. That's what history shows. To win on the battlefield, will Ukraine get the ammunition they say they need? Are you closer to a deal now on that? And what else can you provide? Do you see that consensus?
Ukraine needs everything. To start with, they need to train their troops. You know that you can to take a civilian and to make a soldier, it requires some kind of skills. And we have been training more than 17,000 Ukrainian soldiers, and by the end of the year, our training mission will be trained about 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers. This soldier, you don't put a uniform on someone and you make a soldier. It needs some training. So we are providing training to 30,000 soldiers. We are providing ammunition. I'm not going to give you the concrete figures, but a lot. And we have a purpose, which is to provide 1 million ammunition of 155 millimeters. We have just provided more than 1,000 missiles since the 9th of February, when we started the 3 tracks to provide the munitions. I know that's not enough. I am coming from the meeting of the Chief of Staff of the European armies. Ask them to provide more from their stocks, from what they already have. Because, thanks God, they will not use it by themselves. So they can send to Ukraine, and then our industry will produce more to refurbish their stocks. But it is a matter of urgency. President Zelensky has just said that he's going to delay the counteroffensive. Certainly, they need more preparation, they need more arms, they need to gather more capacity. And it is us who have to provide for it.
So is it your message that every European country has a responsibility to send what they have now? No,
they did. Since the beginning of the war, we have been providing with about 400,000 shots for rounds, about 400 rounds for ammunition, 400,000, which is, well, quite a lot. Mm-hmm. But now the war has become a position war with artillery fights every day. It consumes a lot of ammunition. Yes, certainly every member state has to take out from their stocks and to send to Ukraine. These stocks will be replenished later. We will pay for it. We will provide the financial support to the industry. Europe needs a stronger defense industry. Defense starts by the industry. Defense needs arms. Who produces arms? The industry. So we need a stronger and bigger defense industry in Europe.
And we were talking with the CEO of SAP, who's sitting here, Mr. Johansson, and we agreed in the past the defense industry and defense contracts had a bad reputation. It was an industry that some thought was toxic, going back to the idea of warmongering. In your view, has that changed? It is obvious now that Europe needs a much stronger defense industry, but also more money. And that takes us to defense spending. The 2%, that's good for you? Or do you want to see more?
We have been looking at the plans of our member states. In the next 3 years, if my information is good, and I suppose it is, at least it's the best information we can have. In the next 3 years, the European...
Do you think you're the most informed person now in Brussels?
No. Well,
the second most informed.
Let's say that I am above the average. I am above the average. The member states' plans means that they are going to spend on the next 3 years 70,000 million euros on increasing their defense capacities. 70,000 million euros in the next 3 years in order to boost their defense capacity. It's quite a lot. It's quite a lot. And, you know, I was not a fan of President Trump, but I think he was right in one thing. The Europeans doesn't share their part of the burden. We don't share our part of the burden. And certainly everybody prefers butter to canyons. Me too. Everybody. But sometimes if you don't have canyons, you don't have butter.
Mr. Trump yesterday was on TV, and President Trump, He was on TV. You're not aware. You did not watch the debate. I'm not sure how interested you are in Trump and his ideas in the future, but he said and insisted, it's because of me. I pressured the Europeans to do this 2% at NATO. The money that they send now is because I pressured the EU. In your view, the decisions that the EU takes when it comes to Ukraine, but not just, does that reflect pressure or actually a growing assertiveness?
No, it reflects a clear conscientious perception of reality. It's not because Trump. Yes, because Trump was pushing us to spend more, and at the same time he was very happy to say that he was a good friend of Putin. It's not because of Trump, it's because of the war.
And you mentioned Vladimir Putin. You've been to Russia many times and spoken with, a few times.
No, not many.
Not many? How many times have you been recently in the job?
In my job, once.
Oh, once, and you had exactly. At this point, is there still a diplomatic way out of this? Because when you listen to Vladimir Putin 2 days ago, there isn't a space. He still says this is an existential quest for the Russian soul. When you have as a diplomat,
an existential thing for him.
For Vladimir, not Russia.
For Vladimir Putin, it has become an existential issue for him, not for Russia, for him.
Do you contemplate a future Russia where the leadership is different? Or that is not even in the cards now? There's no point in hypotheticals like that.
Look, I am too busy in supporting Ukraine in order to speculate about what may happen in Russia. For us, we have anything against the Russian people who suffers from this war. Russian soldiers are also being killed. Russian people are suffering a lot of this crazy idea of invading the Ukraine, which is the only responsibility of someone called President Putin. But I am not entering on how the internal politics in Russia will develop. It's not my business. My business is to support Ukraine from an invasion decided by someone without no reason. When I hear some of my friends saying, oh, NATO expansion, blah, 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 this is absolutely blah, blah, blah. Was no threat at all. Ukraine was not a military threat to Russia. Ukraine was not a member of NATO. NATO membership for Ukraine was not in the agenda. Well, now you see what's happening, no? Sweden and Finland, all neighbors says, okay, I better be member of NATO, which is quite understandable. Countries who were neutral, that they never wanted to be part of a military alliance, suddenly they realize that the danger of being invaded is not a theoretical consideration that never will happen. It's something possible because it happens to someone else on their immediate neighborhood. So it's understandable that they say, look, which is the best way of guaranteeing my security? Being member of NATO. And that's why the Swedish and the Finnish, who were historically, for historical reasons, neutral, now they support strongly their membership of NATO. And all neighbors of Russia would like to be member of NATO, certainly. But it's the fault of Russia, not of NATO.
So when some say it's NATO expansion, would you say, how come every neighbor of Russia is scared of Russia? Is that ultimately the way to frame the question?
Well, look at the talk with the neighbors of Russia, you will see what they think about. We have some neighbors of Russia here. We are going to go to Moldova. We are going to deploy a mission in Moldova. Why?
How much do you worry about what's going on in Moldova? There's also an important summit of the European political community.
It's
happening.
very symbolic that the European political community will be meeting in Moldova. It's not by accident that the meeting is there. is there in order to show that Moldova is being supported by the European political community and it's part of the European political community. I think that's the moment in which we have to show resolute strength, unity, and strategic patience. Because Putin believes that democracies are weak, democracies are fragile, public opinion systems, at the end people get tired and there are political changes because people feel free, they can express their opinion, something that doesn't happen in Russia. And the democracies will, at the end, will get tired of their war effort. And we have to prove that it's not true. We will support Ukraine as long as it takes.
You say support Ukraine as long as it takes. You mentioned what Russia may think, but the other big player is China. What do you think China thinks when it comes to the EU, when it comes to the war in Ukraine?
Look, the unlimited friendship between Russia and China has limits.
It has limits.
Yes, it's a limited, unlimited friendship.
It's a new type of relationship.
It's clear that there are limits.
It's not a marriage forever.
And this is a very much unbalanced couple. Russia is 1% of the world GNP. 1% of the world GNP. Do you mean it's economically it's like Italy or Spain, almost. China is more than 20%. It's a couple very much unbalanced. And certainly China is supporting Russia, but by the time being is not providing military support to Russia. We have to be vigilant, and we don't have any kind of interest on pushing Russia on the arms of China, but I don't think China feels very much comfortable with what's happening there. And certainly China has a lot of influence, and we are asking China to use their influence on Russia in order to stop it. At the beginning of the war, it said that China could play a role, not a mediator, but
not a mediator.
A mediator, it's, you mediate when you are in a neutral position. Certainly, it's a kind of pro-Russia neutrality. Huh? Well, yes, it is. It's a pro-Russia neutrality. I am neutral, but I am more on your side than on the other side. It's a biased neutrality, but it has a lot of influence. Russia has a lot of influence on China. And who can buy Russia gas? Look, we have stopped buying Russian gas, which looked incredible 4 months ago. 40% of the gas was coming from Russia. Less in Spain, much more in Germany. We vanished. We canceled. Russia is burning its gas. Just burning, because you know, a gas field you cannot close it as a champagne bottle. Huh? No, the gas continues flowing. And since there is no one to be sold, it's burning. Russia cannot sell its gas to China. It's too far away. Yes, in the border, in the Siberia, there are some fields, but from the Arctic, you cannot build a pipeline to go until China. So Russia is going to be in big trouble to get the money that they were getting from us. China is not a substitute. So we have to take very much care diplomatically on not to push Russia on the hands of China, and to ask China to use their influence to stop the war. It's good that President Xi phoned to President Zelensky. And when we will reshaping our strategy to China, we have to be very much demanding on China to act in this war according with their responsibility, because China is a permanent member of the Security Council, and it has a responsibility from this point of view. And
Mr. Borrell, I'm being told I have to let you go soon. But I have to ask you this question. When it comes to China, the EU says China is a rival, a competitor, and a partner. In your view, is that definition still standing, or the value of those words is changing, where it's maybe less of a partner, more of a competitor, and way more of a rival?
Look, I spent my last 3 days writing the paper that my colleagues tomorrow will be discussing at Stockholm at the GIMIC meeting. So this question comes at fertile ground, because I've been writing and exchanging and producing a paper that at that moment should be on the way to my colleague ministers, and the paper is called Reshaping Our Relationship with China, Engaging with China, Competing with China. And I think that these three words, partner,
rival, and competitor.
I still look, partner. Every day we exchange with China $2.7 billion. Every day we exchange $2.7 billion of trade on goods and services. So it's a partner, a very important partner. Forget about decoupling. We are too much interlinked. It's a competitor. Oh yes, it's a competitor. But the US is also a competitor. Economically speaking, firms compete. And with the Inflation Reduction Act, the US is competing with us, putting a lot of subsidies on their firms, and creating a problem. So being a competitor, nothing bad. We live in a world of competition. Rivalry is the key term, because certainly our systems are rival. If you listen to the Chinese around the world, they say our system is the best one. Look at us. We have taken hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. Look at us. Look at our progress. Our system is a better system. So there is a rivalry among systems. But it doesn't mean that being rival, it doesn't mean to be in a systematic rivalry. Look for the nuance. You are rival, yes, it's a fact of life. There is a completely different political economic system. We are in a battle of offers, not only a battle of narratives.
Interesting. What does that mean?
Battle of offers. Yes, China is offering, and we are offering. And in the rest of the world, there are a lot of hedging states that they don't want to take part, they don't want to take side, and they look for the better offer. So we are in a rivalry which has not to be understood as, these are the words, systematic rivalry. Every day looking for rivalry.
And potential confrontation, ultimately. That would be
but competition,
the climax of this.
Well, China has become a technological leader in many fields. So clearly is a competitor. And, I am going to say something that can be badly understood, and I have to take care of what I'm saying. But the growth of China is something that is in the logic by their size, by their dimension, by their capacities. China is becoming a world power. The important thing is not to prevent China from becoming a world power, is to manage how China will use this power. Because you will not be able to prevent China from becoming a great power. It is and it will be a great power. The important thing is how China is using this power. If it uses its power according with international law, if it doesn't put in danger our interests and values, We have to live in China in the world stage.
And I'm being told I really have to let you go, but this is the final question, I promise. You started as top diplomat, that was the job description. Then it changed into something that wasn't really in the job description. Say more of a defense minister, that was in the cards?
It was in the job description. It was in the job description because the title is High Representative for Foreign Security and Defense Policy. So it was in the job description from the beginning.
And if you put all of this together, do you have future ambitions? Well, is there something that you still say, I still want to accomplish this?
Well, I still want to accomplish this in the next 18 months.
And that's peace and a victory for Ukraine, I guess. That would be the...
This is something that it has to happen. Mm-hmm. It has to happen. Putin cannot win this war. This is our strongest commitment. My personally, and the European Union as a whole, and the free world. Putin cannot win this war. And the world has to understand what's happening there. And this is another battle, this one a diplomatic battle, which is as much as important as the military battle. We have to explain people, we have to engage more with them, we have to tell people what's going on. Because I see too many leaders around the world in a strategic ambiguity. Saying, oh yes, and I call them the yes but people. Yes but. What is the but? Oh yes but. There is no but. There is an invasion. One country is invaded another one without reason, without justification. Hundreds of people are being killed every day. There is no but about that.
And on that note, thank you very much, Mr. Borrell, for your time. I appreciate it.